what timeline is this? Mike, I don't even know how this has happened, why this has happened.
Well, I've given up. Hi, Mitch. Well, I've given up on the quest to try and boost my own channel's numbers. It's not happening. Every time I publish a video, about 100 of you are going to quietly unsubscribe away into the night, and that's just the way it is. Probably because my content sucks and you're all sick of me. Sorry, YouTube. I don't know why you put up with me.
Fuck off, you chav cunts.
Yeah, in my 11 years on this site, the only thing that has ever increased my numbers is when I get a recommendation or a shout out or even a guest appearance on a larger channel. And those eventualities are out of my hands. It's all reliant on the time and generosity of others. What I can do is switch the script around and be the larger channel, giving generous bumps to smaller channels. And those channels can do the same for channels even smaller than them. We can all do our part to help channels smaller than us. And it works its way all the way up the chain until you get to the huge channels who have like 500,000 subs and are still on the rise. No one's big enough to help you. Sorry. Sucks to be you, I guess. Also, I've made an open call for collaborations. Several people have come to me with an idea, but the only people so far who've come to me with an already recorded first response video or first iteration video are Bane66 and Yer Boi Mitch here. It's a lot easier for me to jam with someone if they start me off and lay the foundations, because I'm basically lazy and a talentless hack. So all kudos to Mitch, formerly Charmingman 93, for being less lazy than me. It helps that we've actually met each other, like IRL, like 4 times, I think. So I can confirm he's not an NPC. He's from Manchester, don't worry about it. Alright, take it away, Mitch.
Me and Doc will be discussing rape in this video. Yeah, as you do.
God damn it, Mitch. It's Doc and I.
And we'll be using, in this framework, Joe Rogan.
Ooh, taking on the intellectual dark web. Why? What did he do?
He decides that to still cling on to that old trope that rape is worse when it's done to women, and it's not as bad if a woman does the rape, because I guess she doesn't have a penis.
Ah, so it's an issue of transphobia. I may have to play the devil's advocate on many occasions here. Partly because that should immunise us from the classic argument, you're just MRAs, you're perpetually aggrieved, so I don't have to listen to you. Yeah, the world's second most irresistible ad hominem. The first, of course, being, oh, you were a postman. Phew, for a minute there. I almost examined my own actions. The other advantage to playing some devil's advocate here, Joe, being a comedian, could very well turn around at any point and say, yeah, I was exaggerating. I was joking. I was playing to the crowd, you see. And that's not necessarily good enough, but it's understandable. It's what I would do if I was a comedian who was still, for want of a better phrase, blue-pilled. I've never actually responded to Joe Rogan before, not himself, at least not for a full allotted episode. He's been present in my Maynard response and in one of my Gavin McInnes responses. It already doesn't sound like I'm being super committed to my no dad twice rule, but it's a loose rule. And it's inevitable that Joe often ends up here because I listen to his show quite a lot. Been listening to it since I was a normie myself. So yeah, alright, let's have a look at what the normies think.
Like, you know this Asia Argento thing? You know this thing that's going on right now?
Yes.
So this 17-year-old kid,
right,
when he had sex with her, it was in California, so he's saying it's sexual assault because she had sex with him.
That would be a legally odd thing to conclude outside the state of California.
And then she got Tony Bourdain to pay this kid off $300,000+ to shut his mouth.
So we don't know for sure if this kid really is a victim of this scenario, but what we do know for sure is Asia Argento is not a victim of it. And Anthony Bourdain is. Was. No, is, actually. You don't stop being a victim when you kill yourself. You stop being a victim when you grow a dick. But I exaggerate for comedy effect.
And then it came out that she was a hypocrite because she seduced this kid and fucked him, and she had played his mom in a movie 10 years prior when he was only 7, which is really kind of crazy. There's pictures of her and the kid when the kid was a little kid.
Banana. Just setting the scene here. One mandatory fair use interruption at a time.
Mom and stuff like that. And then they got together and she lied about it and said she didn't fuck him, and then pictures came out of her in bed with him, and then her friends released text messages where she agreed. She's a fucking monster.
That's pretty accurate.
As accurate as monster can be. I have my suspicions that she's a human being, but I'll reserve them.
But that's the turn of events. And he recognises that she is a monster, but...
He was 17 at the time, so it would have been totally legal if this happened in New Jersey. But it happened in California.
As Charles Darwin would say, unlucky.
But this is all going on while she was making a big deal of Harvey Weinstein having sex with her when she was 22. Like, Jesus fucking Christ. Like,
that was
hypocrites.
I know.
You know, the whole thing's crazy. But my point is, first of all, let's be honest about that situation.
Let's be honest.
Let's be honest.
Let's be honest.
Yes, I've got to pull you up on this, I must admit. I'm unconvinced every time I hear this word. Let's be honest. Why would you declare yourself this? Are you a real, let's be honest? And what does that have to do with being honest? I don't fucking know what I'm doing.
Let's be honest about the situation. Even though she's a monster, she broke the law. And yes, I do understand that statutory rape laws differ state to state in America and country to country in general. But we're dealing with this with, one, her being a figurehead for a movement that's meant to be anti-rape, anti-sexual assault, things like that. And also the fact that, you know, she broke the law in her state. That context does matter. Even though I do understand it's weird and, you know, we've still not really gotten down to what is the perfect law. It doesn't really matter. The point is, apparently we now have to be honest about this. Now, what do you think honesty is in this case?
Lesbians.
I mean, 17's, he's going to be okay.
Are Californians generally mature for their age, are they? Or is it perhaps one of those progressive metropolitan areas where the children's emotional development is arrested by government mandate, especially if they've ever enrolled in further education? That's right, it does indeed depend on the individual. One taboo extreme is the idea of, say, a 13-year-old who is somehow sexually precocious enough to fully understand what they're getting themselves in for. These people are very rare, but they do exist, and they're very difficult to think about. But the other extreme taboo is the idea that a man can be a 40-year-old virgin, 40, and it is still possible for him to be raped by a woman. I know you might take that sort of knee-jerk response of, well, he's 17 and he had sex with a woman, he's gonna be fine, and you might elementarily multiply it to, he's 40 and he had sex with a woman, never mind, he's gonna be fine, he should be over the moon, he's finally become a real man, end of story. But what about the Q-tip she shoved up his urethra? No, that's a never didn't do. No woman would ever. But let's gear it up again. What if a 100-year-old virgin man has sex with a woman? Is there any chance there that he didn't know what was going on and was perhaps being taken advantage of? Would it blow your mind if I told you that any male of any age, just like any female of any age, can in fact be raped by the opposite gender? Especially if the opposite gender in question groomed him like a mother figure and then jumped his bones like a Sibian machine, allegedly.
I'm just saying, even if it's illegal, it's just not the same for boys. It is not the same.
It's different when it's boys. He was 17, so he must have been okay. But how come he said he was traumatized and he's suing her?
He could be lying. Again, we don't know. Some men, especially millennial men, can and will become cynical, opportunistic gold diggers if they find themselves with an opportunity. I would take the minor risk of saying it's far more common in women, because it's far easier for women, but it's not beyond the realms of possibility that sometimes a kid raised in a Hollywood freak show would end up picking up the manipulative tactics of that freak show and might just figure out how to make it work for him and start fighting fire with fire. Not the most likely conclusion, but not ruled out either. Again, one party may be a victim, one party definitely a victim since he did nothing wrong but lost 300 grand anyway. The other party committed the grooming and sexual assault of a minor, yet gets away without losing a cent of capital or a lick of positive PR.
How is it different anyway? He's a 17-year-old boy. He's not quite a man yet anyway. Maybe physically one could argue, but was he? Mentally, was he an adult? These are many factors here that we need to discuss. And how's it different anyway? If it's a boy compared to a girl, why is it different that when a man rapes or statutorily rapes a girl, regardless of consent given or not, if she's 17, why is that different? Why is that worse? Can you explain that to me?
Is it because men enjoy sex and women don't? Or is that a sexist and offensive thing to say? Does that dehumanize women in some way? Should I correct myself and suggest instead that women also enjoy sex? Oh, well, that just made me sound like a rape apologist.
Is it just because that one has testosterone and the other has estrogen and we value one over the other, therefore it's different? Joe? Really? Because you just admit that she's a monster, but she's not as bad as a male monster because the man is a monster, he's a worse monster purely because he's a man.
Is it because women are weak? Oh wait, that's misogyny. Women are just as strong as men. So yeah, what is the fucking difference? I think it involves one or more of the lies I just told.
Women somehow are weaker than men mentally, not just physically, because that's on average anyway. Therefore it's worse. Well, considering that men mature later than women, I know that's physically, but do they also mature mentally than women? Because if you think about it, women need to be able to be reproductive at a certain point in their life cycle. So would it make sense for them to mature not just physically but mentally earlier than boys so they can prepare themselves for having children?
I do have to wonder if anyone's going to adopt like different age of consent laws for different genders to try and solve this problem. I haven't looked into it, and I'd rather not, but I think it was common and still is in some places for the age of consent to be lower for girls, like by a couple of years. It was common for, say, a 15-year-old male and a 13-year-old female to get married, usually arranged or whatever. And this is not beyond a culture's ability to manipulate. Not just the age of consent, but the maturity or perceived maturity of its citizens. There's no clear-cut moment at which a boy becomes an adult, biologically. There is for girls. It's when menstruation begins. It goes right from no blood to blood, just like that, whether you like it or not, which can be at the age of anything from like 9 to 15, something. But when does a boy physically become a man, like biologically? There's nothing you can point to, except maybe the first time sperm leaves his body. But, as you may have noticed, for quite a lot of primitive societies, it's not considered a rite of passage for sperm to leave the body. On the contrary, it's very much considered a sin. And it is delayed as much and for as long as possible, and not just with the use of padded gloves or by screwing their junk into a spermatic truss, but by good old-fashioned shame. It seems to be in a culture's interest to keep boys physically immature for as long as possible, and to keep everyone intellectually immature for as long as possible.
So therefore, you could say that it's actually worse to rape a boy, regardless if he's, I don't know, 13 to 17, because the brain does not stop developing until, well, your mid-20s. Then it's worse to rape a boy than a girl, because he is far less developed.
This is an argument you'll hear from smug feminists all the time, by the way. Girls mature earlier than boys, in every way, emotionally, intellectually, and physically. So surely, if a 15-year-old girl has sex with a 15-year-old boy, she is taking advantage of him. Because she's sexually mature, and he isn't. And yet, the resounding rule is, if a 15-year-old boy has sex with a 15-year-old girl, he should have known better. He's taking advantage of her. It's a bit queer, isn't it? Prove me wrong. Change my mind, as Crowder would say. And don't be aggrieved about it. If you want to change my mind, just listen and believe.
I know there are exceptions to all these rules, but you could argue that. I personally would not argue that. I don't care if they're more developed or less developed. The law is the law, and you follow that, regardless if you're a sexual freak or not.
You follow the law as best you can, and in the meantime, you write a strongly worded letter to your political representative saying, I think these laws are wrong and should be reformed. Then, of course, the political representative in question calls the police on you for your harassing and menacing language.
All right, that lady's a freak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he was 17, but
She's more guilty of being a hypocrite than anything.
Oh, she's more guilty of being a hypocrite than a rapist. Okay.
To be fair, rape is a much worse offence than hypocrisy, but it's definitely proven that she's a hypocrite and not quite proven that she's a rapist. So yes, she is more guilty of a despicable behaviour, but less bang to rights guilty of a serious crime.
did she stay in touch with him all those years
Yes.
from when she was playing the mom?
Yes. The real creepy picture is her in the movie with him when he was like a little kid. You're like, oh, but it's not as creepy as Woody Allen.
Anti-Semite, are we? That was cheap. And it doesn't even work anymore, does it? The Jew card. Didn't work for Weinstein. Didn't even work for Roseanne. She's a Jew and a woman. Works for Soros, though. Fucking funny how that works, isn't it? It's almost like it's nothing to do with race and everything to do with political teams. Man, what have I been smoking?
I don't know if there's even a reason to make that comparison, but my point is that kid would have no case at all if this was in New Jersey.
Right.
It was
16.
in New Jersey, which I don't think he should have a case.
Does he? Is he?
That doesn't matter. That's a fallacy, Joe. Nobody cares about New Jersey. We're concerned about Californian law. We can play the relativist game all we want, but the fact remains is she broke the law in California. But apparently, this guy shouldn't have a case because he's a man. But if he was a woman, would you be saying the same thing? Again, you've pretty much already said that you wouldn't. So, what is it, Joe? Either she's a monster and she's a hypocrite and should be punished, or she's a monster and a hypocrite but should not be punished because it's a 17-year-old boy and for some reason it's different. It's not the same.
I think the point Joe's trying to make is, yes, a monster illegally wrapped her scabby vagina around the penis of a young man who trusted her, but there's no reason this should be illegal. Am I warm, Joe? Does that include fucking your stepson?
Or stepdaughter even. Would you consider that wrong? I bet you would, but you wouldn't think it's as bad if Woody Allen did it.
If it was 18, or if it was, if he was 18 rather, or if it was like in New Jersey where it's 16, there's no case, and she just fucked a young kid.
Is it not against the law to fuck a kid in New Jersey? Finally, some salient information, thank you.
Yeah.
See, the problem is the age of consent being 17.
Ah! So you are saying the age of consent should be lowered. Fucking hell, Joe, it's a good thing you're not Sargon, or you'd have just provided the not-a-skeptic community with 2 weeks of headline news. Oh, he said nigger. Aha! He said nigger and he didn't even realise it. Ha! We killed your career again. You are dumb. You are really, really dumb. Yeah, I think I might start calling them the better than you community. Because let's face it, that is the only thing they believe in.
And I'm just going to be honest. The only thing that's creepy is that they had this sort of mom-son thing going on where they talked about each other as mom and son.
Yeah, it's called manipulation and grooming. That's why she did that. Who cares about other fucking laws? Yeah, she'd get away with it if he was in another state, if it was New Jersey. So what? I mean, to be fair, there's probably a law against taking somebody from California who's underage to another place. I don't know, maybe.
That's probably kidnapping and rape. If it's a little girl, obviously. If it's a little boy, it's a road trip.
I don't know. Maybe it depends on state boundaries. I don't know. But I think Anision got away with that, didn't he, actually?
Yeah, he can get away with anything. He's a white male.
You're almost there. You know that it's wrong. You know that it's creepy. But you just can't make that extra logical step to realise that, yeah, it's just as bad if a man did it.
Or a woman. See, even we get confused sometimes. I don't know if it's me being confused or Mitch, but one of us is confused. Mitch has a touch more of the tism than I do. Conversely, I have a touch more of the schism. The what? Yeah, the cluster we don't care about.
Weird.
If she was just a hot 35-year-old who had sex with a handsome 17-year-old boy.
Right. Yeah, 17's that's a man.
Well, no, you can't just outright say that 17 is a man. Maybe some people, some men are men at 17. You know, physically developed properly, mentally, as far as we can gather, they're men. But a lot are not. I know that I wasn't.
I was one bad day away from killing myself when I was 17.
I mean, maybe physically at 17 I was slightly different than what I am now. I only grew slightly since. But mentally, I would say I was far more of a child back then than I am now at the age of 24. So even though I could consent to sexual acts and things like that, did I really know what I was getting myself into at 17?
Speaking of the tism, what's worse? Fucking an adult who has the mind of a child? Or fucking a child who has the mind of an adult? It's a somewhat unbalanced question, since one of these things is pure fantasy and the other is very much a reality. The safe answer is to go ahead and say don't fuck either of them. Unless, of course, you are a true Jad male. Can't wait for that Sweetie Squad hit piece. You don't have any friends, remember?
She got close to the wire. She's like, I can't hold on anymore.
Enough already.
Well, yeah, basically, she couldn't control herself, and look what's happened.
Obviously, she was being controlled by Anthony Bourdain. I mean, he probably killed himself just to spite her.
I just don't think it's the same thing. Now, I think the only thing she's really guilty of here is hypocrisy and deception. I don't think she's guilty of a sex crime, even though she technically is.
She is! By California law, she is! And you've yet to explain why it's different.
In my mind, I mean, maybe am I a sexist? I don't know. If I am, I'm sexist against men.
Yes, you are. Bouncers are sexist towards men in clubs because they'll let any woman in, but they won't let a man in if they don't like the cut of his collar or whatever, you know? Yes, you are sexist. You are. You're not bigoted, but you are sexist. You don't hate men, obviously, but you have preconceived notions that are wrong.
Hang on, I just looked up sexist in the dictionary and it says here, especially women. So, it's alright, you're not especially sexist. Women especially, see? No further elaboration required. Even the dictionary is sexist. Except by its own definition.
Well, I think the guy's going to be okay.
Well, he obviously isn't. He sued her because he felt mentally damaged. He wasn't. He clearly wasn't. Something happened to him.
Again, it's not impossible that the dude's just lying and making everything up. It's just, it wouldn't make a lot of sense to pay him $350,000 for a lie. A lie that the rabidly gynocentric mainstream media isn't going to believe for a second anyway. Okay?
I just don't buy that he was so damaged.
Oh, you don't buy it, so you don't believe a victim, eh? See how it's different, guys, when it's men? It's weird. We're supposed to be becoming more honest with our views and our feelings about ourselves and things like that. But when we do, when this lad does do that, he couldn't have been that damaged. No way. No. What are you talking about, mate? You enjoyed it. You're a testosterone-fueled young boy. Oh, well, he's a man now. Of course you enjoyed it. You slept with a Hollywood actress who may have groomed you, potentially, for many, many years, and just couldn't hold on to her own sanity any longer and just had to have sex with you. You should be lucky.
Are you saying you didn't enjoy the heroin that I injected into your dick? Because you just seemed pretty happy about it at the time. I mean, you came back for more. It is obvious who the victimizer of that scenario is that I just described. To anyone with a gram of conscience, it is obvious. And yet all I have to do is change drug to pussy. All I have to do is change heroin to heroin spelled with an E on the end. And suddenly it's, well, I don't know, I can't tell, it's too complicated. I mean, he enjoyed it. Hey, guess what? Girls enjoy dick. Even girls in their early pubescence very much enjoy dick. But it is possible to victimize somebody by giving them something they enjoy too much. Do you understand that? Well, the kid enjoyed the candy I gave him, so it's his own fault he followed me into the back of the truck. Is that a solid defense? Earth to Joe. Earth to normies everywhere. Swap candy for pussy and it is still a crime. Swap dick for pussy and it is still a crime. Snap the fuck out of it, please.
I mean, what is it? Is it a crime?
Yes! It is a crime. Statutory rape is a crime, Joe. How can you not get this in your bald skull?
That's staying in.
I wish I was making this up.
Well, the law's the law, Joe. The law's the law.
Mr. Dragnet over there.
You gotta pay. You gotta. The laws are on the books for a reason, Joe. And then law says 17. Doesn't say 16 and a half. It says 17 for a reason.
That's sarcasm. That's sarcasm there, mate. Total. Yeah, definitely the law's the law. No, the law is the law. These laws are there and are designed to look after and protect children. And regardless of whether you agree with that or not, that is the law.
But you are quite free to lobby the government to lower the age of consent. And then you'll have the alt-right up your ass instead of just the control left, which is a different yet similar kind of beast. Their speciality is quote mining clips like this.
Let me see what you got. How big's your dick? You're full grown. Get the fuck out here, pussy.
It's a cruel world, Mr. Rogan. Cruel, unforgiving, and with severe anterior grade memory loss.
I had a friend of mine who grew hair when he was like 12. He was the hairiest little Italian kid. He had a mustache, full beard at 13. I'm sure his pubes were gigantic.
Good. Legal.
You have the weirdest fetish ever, gentlemen. But out there somewhere, in the deepest, darkest red chans, there's a website just for you. Rule 34 is, as Rule 34 be like it do. Yes, I know you're joking. So am I. And I'm better than you. Because you think you're better than everyone. It must be so much fun in my head.
It's some people, they want to mitigate the effects of being raped by turning into something different. So they maybe would establish a consensual relationship with the person after they raped them.
To try and take their power back a little?
You mean like Milo?
Well, not just that, to try to relieve themselves of the feeling of being a victim, like almost make it consensual.
Yeah.
There's like a weird psychological dynamic.
Like with Milo?
That you and I will never understand as men.
Yeah.
Cruel. Unforgiving. Severe anterior grade memory loss.
That's weird, because I've seen men do that too when they've basically been raped. I've known men who have been raped, but they can pass it off for some reason. I've been at parties where men have been basically jumped on by women when they're barely conscious. This actually happened when I was 17. She's now married, and I don't know what he's doing, but the thing is, she should not have done that. He basically got raped. Everybody agrees with that, but they didn't care. But one guy gets falsely accused a couple of years before that, and everybody seemed to think, yeah, he did it, even though he didn't. So, yeah. How? None of this makes sense. Male victims probably do this too. I will grant you, maybe some female victims do that, but apparently you can't understand that because you're a man. No, you can't understand that because you're not a rape victim, as far as I know. So, again, what you should do is maybe try to understand it from a psychological point of view, an empathetic point of view, I don't know. But as a man, no, men can get raped. Are you now saying that men can't be raped? What do you believe, Joe? Because I do know, and Mike, you obviously told me we've got to be careful because Joe is very slippery with his principles and views, things like that. But I don't know. He seems to be pretty honest here.
Well, look, and I'm not just devil's advocating now. This is actually what I think. At least Joe is considering his answers. He's meandering. He's perambulating around the possibilities. He's not just dead-eyed and droning the narrative without missing a beat. He's not just an NPC, in other words. If you painted him grey, he would look exactly like an NPC. Well, that's just another joke. The fact that he's joking about these things rather than just angrily asserting is evidence that he's thinking in terms of polarities, things which contradict expectations. I see this as a sign of a mind through which shit is moving very slowly, grinding ever so gradually, but at least getting somewhere. And why wouldn't it happen slowly? Can anyone really say they had a red pill moment where everything just clicked or in an instant? No, it takes fucking years. It's a process of disillusionment. The normies will come around at their own pace if we let them go at their own pace. Unlike the NPCs, who cannot and will not ever budge a smegging inch from their body-tight cavity in the sand, because they are broken. They were foobar before they even got to the shelf. They are the ones we should be worried about, not the normies. However, conversely, the normies are the ones we can get through to. They're at least capable of listening, capable of creating a new branch of thought. So you might say that's where we should put our attention. True enough. The first thing the normies need to understand is the NPCs. Be aware of what NPCs think, and always question it. And make sure you do some deep self-examination if ever you find yourself saying shit like, if man equals raped, go to open bracket, women's equals raped, close bracket, is greater than dir star dot men, go to man equals not raped. Do some soul searching, brother. And just to test you, your homework this Halloween is, what do you think of Orange Man?
Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video, everybody. I enjoyed making this video with Mike. I'm gonna shut up now. It's very late, and I might have angered my neighbours. So, anyway, until next time, I'll see you later. Fuck right.
What the? Why, you... Does it? Music that you do.
Fuck off, you chav cunts.